I've long asked this question. Do stupid people eventually realize that they're actually stupid? And today, I think I got my answer.
Minister, what are you going to do on health care? How are you going to fix those problems? What is your policy
Mr.
solution?
Doherty, please.
Thank you.
What is your policy solution? Do you have any? No.
Mr. You're the one that's in power right now. You've been in power for 9 years.
What is your solution?
And yet we're
If you're going to
failing in
criticize, what's your
every
area?
metrics, Minister.
Your solution is cuts.
A year and a half.
Cuts are going to
You're
bring
a failure,
doctors and
Minister.
nurses.
Please allow him to pose the question. Go ahead, Mr. Doherty.
You're so disrespectful. And weak.
I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment your thoughts down below. This is really something. It is so cringy and abhorrent and just really shameful, actually. And also so gosh darn embarrassing, because you can bet your bottom that when a narcissist like this speaks, they think they're winning. Like he thinks he did such a good job here. But for us people with normal brains, we can look into this and see nothing but a complete failure, complete gaslighting, a complete manipulation, and also an intimidation tactic. This is honestly such a wild exchange. And then on top of that, we have another thing where stupid people, you'd hope that maybe they would realize that they're stupid. Turns out they don't. And really, I guess Trudeau's entire cabinet, you become the company that you keep. So keep your company very wisely. That's my best piece of advice for anybody. And it's clear that his entire cabinet are people who have similar personality traits. So to begin, we're going to focus on Mark Holland. He is the man, of course, who is the health minister. And, when he was a kid, he has like really bad PTSD or something because his family locked him in a minivan while they went on a 10-day road trip and didn't let him use the bathroom. Kind of sounds like a scene out of a movie, but that is what he has said. So,
Mr. Speaker, good news, kids. You can take a summer fun time vacation where you're locked in a car for 10 consecutive days, nonstop with no bathroom breaks, and the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet, right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
We're just going to go with that. You might lose some brain cells before you watch this, so just a heads up.
Are you familiar with waiting your turn, wait times for healthcare in Canada, the report that was issued today?
I'm aware of it. I haven't had a chance to look at it. It was issued today.
So it's interesting because, Minister, it says that report reveals that out of 30 developed countries, Canada is ranked 28th in availability of doctors, 25th in hospital beds, 25th for psychiatric beds, 27th for MRI machines, and 28th for CT scanners. That's your record.
Actually, I love how you don't hold Ford or any other government accountable for provincial health care. Health care is administered provincially. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But we do try to...
Minister, I'm being respectful. You don't
No,
have
but that
to be
wasn't respectful. You just said that it's something that's under provincial jurisdiction is our responsibility. That's not respectful.
Minister, that's your record.
I mean, if that's the case, why does he even have a job as the federal health minister?
But that's not true.
That is your record.
What are you asking about Doug Ford? What do you think the provincial government in Ontario should do?
Is Doug Ford in front of me right now? You're the Minister of Health.
Right. And so what we did is sign agreements with every province and every territory, $200 billion.
So out of 30 countries, you're happy with that?
That included metrics in every single... No, absolutely. Look, I am not happy or satisfied with where we are in healthcare. But the point is that we have one of the best health systems in the world, that when it comes to primary care, we can do much better, and we are. But provinces have to do their fair share, and not holding provinces to account is not responsible.
Mr. Doherty, please.
Minister, under your management of this file, 7 million Canadians are without a doctor. What have you done? What measurable steps have you done in the year and a half that you've been the Minister of Health to make sure that those 7 million or Canadians have access to nurses, to doctors? What have you done?
Well, I wish I had 20 minutes to answer that, because it's a very long answer. The first one starts with agreements with every province, every territory, $200 billion, common indicators across the system. With those common indicators, commitments on specifically doctors, nurses, and improvements in primary care. First High data out last year.
Canadians.
I believe I still have about 5 or 10
yes,
seconds.
Keep going.
So
yep.
The first High data showing baseline report last year shows every province, every jurisdiction, almost without exception, ahead in doctors and nurses. That when you take a look at the investments that we're making in that I just talked
Minister?
about, C-72 or health data. I
Mr.
can't say it
Mr.
fast enough
Doherty,
because I
please.
got so much to say on it. It's
Mr.
great
Doherty,
news.
please.
You have a mandate letter?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a continuation of the preceding mandate letter.
So, Minister, you've been in this role for a year and a half, and yet Canadians have yet to see what your mandate letter is. Who sets your priorities?
Well, I think at the beginning I enumerated my priorities very clearly. Pharmacare, dental care, data transformation. Where do you stand with Bill C-72? Where do you stand on dental care? Where do you stand on pharmacare? What is your position? How are you going to fix?
In a year's time, Minister, in a year's time, you'll have lots of time to ask all the questions.
No,
you want.
I won't, because you'll still be in opposition
probably
because you
you'll be-
can't answer
probably
questions
because
about
you'll
what
be
you're
out
going to
of
do for
your
health
seat.
care.
So,
No, what
Minister-
are you going to do on health care? How are you going to fix those
Minister-
problems? What is your policy
Mr.
solution?
Doherty, please.
Thank you.
What is your policy solution? Do you have any? No.
Minister, you're the one that's
please.
in
Mr.
power
Doherty.
right now. You've been in power for 9 years.
What is your
And yet
solution?
we're
If you're gonna
failing in
criticize, what's your
every
area?
metrics, Minister.
This is absolutely nuts. So unhinged. There's so much gaslighting, so much intimidation. And I can guarantee you, Mr. Holland there thinks that he is just like, mic drop, mic, oh, you're asking me questions? Well, what are you gonna do? And it's like, are you dumb? Yes, you are, because you do realize that you are testifying right now in front of the committee. That is your time to answer their questions. And you do realize that you are in power, not them. So to ask them, what are you going to do? Nothing, buddy, because that's your job.
Your
A year
solution
and a
is
half.
cuts.
A year and a
think
half.
cuts are gonna
You're a
bring
failure,
doctors and
Minister.
nurses.
Please allow him to pose the question. Go ahead, Mr. Doherty.
You're so disrespectful. And weak. And you can stare at me all you want. Like I've been mean mug me all you want. But Minister, the rates of scurvy are on the rise. Yet you're taking off the GST on pop and chips and candies, but you are raising the cost of everything healthy with your carbon tax. What's your rationale for that?
A, it doesn't increase the cost. B, if you cared about scurvy, then you'd be talking about initiatives in First Nations communities. The scurvy you're speaking about is in rural, remote communities. The policies that you have to deal with that are exactly nil. And I find it, yes, I'm very frustrated, Mr. Doherty, that the Conservatives would talk about issues like poverty. You know, I was in opposition. I watched you never talk about poverty. You never set poverty guidelines. You have no policies or ideas on poverty. In fact, your cuts will do devastating things to the very issues you're talking about. And I think it is dishonest and disingenuous
Mr.
when you have no solutions.
Mr. Doherty, please.
Mr. You're the only one that's talking about conservative cuts. The only thing that we're talking about is axing the tax for everyone forever. That'll make life more affordable for all Canadians. The only one that is spewing rhetoric and garbage are the Liberals and the NDP, their coalition partners. So if you want to start telling the truth, that's, that would be a novel idea.
So let's start with
So
scurvy.
Minister, no, it's my time, not yours. So, I didn't. So, Minister, over 47,000 Canadians have lost their lives due to the opioid crisis. You've spent, your government has
Doherty,
spent $1 billion on failed policies.
Your time is up. Get to your question. We'll let him answer it, and then we'll move on.
Minister, what's your comments to people like Brianna McDonald's families that all they've asked for is for this government to stop their decriminalization and their failed
25
drug
seconds
policies?
over time. Minister, please take 30 seconds to answer the question, then we'll move.
Thank you. In the first order, any person, and I know that you would share it in my heart, and you would share it in yours, that anybody who loses a family member is devastating. And we need to use science, data, evidence to provide solutions, not emotions and not fake policies. So we have to provide real answers, and that's what we will offer: true science-based, evidence-based decisions to save people's lives. And if you take scurvy, and I'll just finish on this because you want to talk about facts, somebody who's so food insecure that they have scurvy doesn't drive around a car. They don't pay carbon tax, but you would take away their check. You would take away the benefit that they get every single quarter that helps them pay for groceries. That's what you would do.
Thank you, Minister.
So you would leave them less secure and in a more vulnerable position.
In that acknowledgement himself, he essentially confirmed that it is a wealth distribution program, which again just goes to prove the point when they say 8 out of 10 Canadians receive back more than they pay. That is why. Because 8 out of 10 Canadians, from whatever data point they got that one from, are those who are living in poverty. He let that one slip out, I think, because yeah, that pretty much just confirmed it. It is absolutely wealth redistribution that not only gets the government an extra, I think it's around $4 billion in 2024 in revenue, but also is able to help the government cut back some of their financing from other budgets to lower income Canadians.
Can you tell Canadians how many Canadians, in percentage-wise, are struggling to access fresh fruit, fresh and affordable food in Canada? You like the Jeopardy question, so here's number one.
Yeah, well, I suspect that you have an answer. I've never quite understand why you asked me a question that you seem to have an answer to. I mean, food insecurity is very serious. I hope that we could take a second to talk about the answers to food insecurity. It is a devastating impact in First Nations communities, rural, remote communities. It is a very difficult thing to quantify because you have food insecurity that takes many forms, whether or not it's access to fresh fruits and vegetables or whether or not it's access to food at all. We have food deserts. So it's
Again,
difficult to
Minister,
enumerate.
thanks very much. It's clearly that you don't have the clue of what the answer is. It's 32%, which is almost a third of Canadians. And you know, again, maybe the second Jeopardy question that you seem to love, how many Canadians are visiting food banks on a regular basis?
Well, far too many. I mean, I think the question I would pose to you is...
No, you're not asking me
You
questions.
sure I
I'm
can.
asking-
I mean, that's absolutely my prerogative.
give a little more time
You
than
don't
that.
have the
Go ahead.
opportunity in a democracy to tell me what I can and can't do, Mr. Ellis. You cannot like it. But I'm saying
that's
that
not
I just spent 5 minutes talking about solutions. So do you want to talk about solutions to the issue that you just raised, or do you want to just play this game where you're now going to say some statistic? Because I'm not interested in that,
Well,
to be honest.
He is just a piece. Like, oh God, was that ever shameful? I was Googling it too, and apparently he has a wife, which leads me feeling concerned. Like, could you imagine the response that his wife gets when she says something he doesn't like or tries to criticize him? Ew. He reminds me of those guys in like middle school, high school who would get mad at you and torment you because you didn't like them back.
As a matter of fact, Minister, I know that you don't know the answers because we've well established that. Or you're too embarrassed to say that 2 million Canadians access food banks on a regular basis because of your government's reckless spending. Given that statistics, when you look at it, what about your temporary tax trickery? You know, when you begin to look at this, why don't you enlighten Canadians as to the actual GST amount on things like fresh fruits and vegetables and unprepared meats? What would that be?
Well, first of all, access to food banks and policies surrounding it deal with poverty. This is the government that for the first time set targets on poverty and has met them every single year. Well, we've seen too many people increasing in poverty. We see much lower levels than we saw in 2015 when we had a government, and the Conservative government, that never prioritized poverty or people who are living in food insecurity. So I would ask you what policies you have, Mr. Ellis, that would address these issues. I can enumerate the policies that we have to deal with both food insecurity
I'll
and
interrupt you,
with
Minister.
food
You know,
banks
it's
that are global
interesting,
issues.
Minister.
But as far as I'm aware, you have
Excuse
no
me, Minister.
policies on these ideas.
Dr. Ellis, please.
It's interesting because I would suggest that my job, as being in the opposition, would be to hold you to account, not to give you policies. So please tell Canadians the GST amount, it's a simple answer, on fresh meats that need to be cooked and fruits and vegetables.
So I disagree. I was in opposition. I absolutely, when I was a public safety critic, advocated for changes in policies. You have advocated none. If you're going to raise poverty and say that you care about food banks or insecurity or any such matter, having absolutely no policy that addresses those issues is irresponsible. And simply just criticizing, anybody can do that. I have a 10-year-old can do that with Google.
Thank you very much, Minister. You know, it's very clear that you do not understand that on uncooked meats and fresh fruits and vegetables, there is no GST.
Moving on to Sean Fraser, the Liberals announced this really cool new initiative that they have where they're going to be providing low-cost loans of up to $80,000 for you to create a new home for a loved one or a rental property, which is interesting because they also announced, what was that, 2 weeks ago now, or last week, that they were planning to crack down on rental properties so that they could unlock new housing for people. So that's kind of weird and a little contradictory, but whatever. This is officially launching in 2025. And there's some really big details here because, of course, they're on their high horse and they're like, oh my gosh, look, peasants, we are so nice to you. We want you to live in a trailer in your backyard.
We're here in Hammonds Plains, Nova Scotia, and this home belongs to Art and Joan. It is a 2-bedroom home with energy-efficient design and accessibility features as well. Now, what's interesting about this place, it's not a traditional single-family home at all. This is a backyard suite. You see, Art and Joan lived in this community for 57 years, and when they ran into certain concerns that demanded more accessible housing options, they approached their daughter Deborah, who lives in the home behind me, to ask whether they could actually build a home on the same lot. Most important is people like Art and Joan get to call this place home. We want to make it easier for more families to embrace innovative housing solutions like this, which is why we put forward a new low-cost loan worth $80,000. We believe these kinds of ideas can help solve the housing crisis, and we want to make it easier for you to embrace the solutions that we know exist.
So the couple that he's referring to in this video, him and Chrystia Freeland did a press conference a couple days back where they were discussing this. And the couple who lives in that particular home is an older couple where they needed to install accessibility in their home and they couldn't afford it. And they had lived in the same neighborhood their entire lives. Their daughter lived down the street. And so they had asked their daughter, can we do something maybe because we obviously can't live in this house anymore and we can't afford to get whatever is needed installed so that this home is safe and easy for us to use anymore. So they had to give up their family home that they lived in for like 50 years and they had to go and move into their daughter's backyard. So let's break that down. Sean Fraser and the Liberals think that to solve Canada's housing crisis, even though we have vast amounts of land, there's plenty of opportunity to build, they don't want to do that. And it's difficult to do that due to all of the red tape and bureaucracy that they have created, making permits impossible to get. It takes so long to get something new approved and built. It's also next to impossible to get anything that is remotely close to affordable, because if it was affordable, the people building these homes would be losing money themselves, right? So their solution is for you to renovate a sea can and put it in your backyard. And that's assuming that you're even lucky enough to have a property or would even want to lose a massive portion of your yard so that you could go and put up this housing. And they're giving low-cost loans of up to $80,000 so that you can create a home for a loved one or a rental property, as he says. You know, I'm pretty sure there's a few things you could really do to help Canadians with the housing crisis. One would be to deport many of the people who are in this country unlawfully. To seize our immigration would also be huge. You could also even spend responsibly so our dollar is worth something valuable so that we could afford to buy a home. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It seems pretty common sense that people are probably not going to be rushing to spend $80,000 on a trailer in their backyard. Stupid people, I tell you. They think they're giving you something good, but they're so stupid they don't even realize just what it is that they're actually implying. So yeah, that's a no from me, dog. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and hey, it's the holiday season. Why not make my day and give me a follow on other social media channels as well? I'll talk to you tomorrow.